Today on the Topping Show, Bud Light sales continue to go down to negative 28.2% as the competitors continue to eat up market share. General Motors to kill their last ICE sedan, the rest in peace, the Chevy Malibu. Planet Fitness to raise prices amid a new CEO. Vivek on Ann Coulter saying she wouldn't vote for him because he's Indian. RFK says he's in support of full-term abortions and goes viral. California Electric Company to charge people based on their income level, penalizing you for working hard. And Beyond Meat, their stock, well, drops yet again. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder released twice a day. I'd say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have General Motors to kill their last ICE sedan, the good old Chevy Malibu, an icon of the decades of Detroit. And they're going to now push more of the Chevy Bolts out, which is an EV, which is, I mean, you can't sue them for false advertising. They call it a Bolt, and in fact it does use, in true Bolt forms, like a lightning bolt, burst into flames with recalls for the batteries, as well as last year there's actually a software and a hardware default, or issue rather, with the charging cable, which would cause people to get shocked if they were to touch it, which is kind of hilarious. Now, going to LinkedIn for the specific article, this is by Kara Reinhardt. She says, quote, for almost 60 years, after 60 years, General Motors is discontinuing the Chevy Malibu, shutting down production and retooling its Kansas assembly plant to make the next generation Chevy Bolt vehicles. The company will also pause manufacturing of Cadillac XT4 in 2025 and lay off workers before resuming the production of the XT4 on the same line as the Bolt. GM has sold more than 10 million Malibu sedans, but has been moving aggressively towards the direction of EVs and stopped the production of gas-powered models such as the Chevy Camaro, which Mary Barr has been CEO for 5+ years. Only like past couple months has the stock actually gone up to actually keep in line with competitors in S&P, well, not close to S&P. Let's just say there's a lot of ineptitudes at General Motors, including killing the iconic Chevy Camaro. I mean, granted, they've canceled it a lot before, but now it looks like the new Chevy Camaro is going to come back as an EV two-door SUV, which is an abomination to the muscle car community. Needless to say, Ford did win the Pony Wars with the Mustang, which Jim Farley, their CEO, says, we are proud to have a V8 and we will always have an affordable sports car with a V8. And it does help that they always have an option for 3 pedals, also known as a manual transmission, also known as the most fun you'll have driving a vehicle, bar none. And it'll be interesting to see, again, in terms of a volume of units sold, the Chevy Bolt is increasingly becoming popular, and GM wants to go full EV by 2035 and have Cadillac be full EV by 2030. Now, that being said, every automotive manufacturer on the planet is scaling back their EV capabilities dramatically because of the decrease in consumer demand. And keep in mind, a lot of these vehicles are, in the trend of EVs, are also heavily subsidized by the US government. Not just, giving the businesses tax credits and, emissions credits, all that kind of stuff, but also individual purchasers. In many cases, they get $7,500 in rebates from the US government, or federal tax refunds, whatever you want to call them. Without those, this will come, not screeching to a halt, but because it's an EV, it'll hum to a halt because of the regenerative braking. Well, in all reality, it is heavily propped up by the government. The government is also, because of the ineptitudes on the left and the right, we're $34 trillion in debt these days. I don't know how much longer we can keep propping up these types of industries. And again, in terms of brand identity, GM just keeps shooting themselves in the foot. They have a long track record of doing this. They've gone bankrupt 3 times since Billy Durant founded the company, when he combined Oldsmobile and Buick way back in the day, and killing the most iconic sedan. And now they make no cars, basically, with the exception of the Bolt. And then, of course, you have the EV and the hybrid Corvette, which, again, I will stir up in my mouth. They only have a stick shift option for the Corvette, which shows you how little they know their customers, and is a good way to push your customers to things like the Mustang and the Porsche, or some people call it Porsche. It does sound fancier when you say Porsche, though. I mean, let's be honest, that's just kinky high sipping champagne or a whiskey glass. That's fancy, that's classy, but nevertheless, it'll be interesting to see I mean, in terms of entry-level vehicles, GM is getting rid of more and more of them. And I know the trend, a lot of companies are moving towards crossovers, SUVs, and trucks. There's also more profit in those vehicles. But let me know in the comments. I always think it's good to have an entry-level product just to get a brand association going and a loyalty to the brand. I mean, they did this for the Chevy Cruze for years before the demand decreased to the point where it needed it. Then they sold more of the Chevy Sonic, which is an ICE engine, small, more compact car. But is the thing where they make a lot of money on the actual vehicle, but you make it up in repairs, parts. You have the good old financing with GM Finance, and truth be told, later they just cross their fingers and hope and pray you come back and buy an SUV or a truck, which has more profit than we can possibly fathom. Like they used to lose $482 per Chevy, Chevy Cruze sold. Juxtapose that with the dealers, and I'm talking about dealers right now. On average, they're selling for trucks like $10,000 plus of profit. I mean, people always wonder why there's so many SUVs and trucks in America. Well, partially due to EPA regulations killing small vehicles, but also because there's a consumer perception and they're willing to pay a premium for them. So it's sad to see such an icon. I wonder if they have any of the old pictures. Looks like that's the last generation. If you're, they have the last generation on the screen right now of the Chevy Malibu, which actually it looks a little bit. I mean, the ones in muscle car areas obviously look a lot better. But I mean, I kind of didn't like them just personally, just because oh shoot, I like to have weird, fun cars that actually make me smile when I shift. Have manual transmission. I mean, truth be told, I have a green car, so obviously I'm not the core prospective client that GM is catering to these days. But let me know, do you know anyone who actually bought a Chevy Malibu? And if they did it inspire them to buy a larger, more profitable vehicle, like a truck, like the Silverado, or what else is GM really known for? Maybe get the Tahoe for the Chevrolet brand. As always, let me in the comments. I would be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Planet Fitness to raise prices as consumers are more and more worried about pricing. And you also have a boycott of the brand because they allow biological men to be inside women's locker rooms and change in front of girls. Which, again, if you did it in a public park, you'd be, unless it's San Francisco, in the real world, you'd be arrested subsequently and you'd be properly prosecuted for child abuse, and all the. It's one of those things where I can't think of a good reason to go Planet Fitness these days, except perhaps to get a poster board and protest out there peacefully, and let people know, hey, if you're a woman, a guy can just walk into the locker room. They encourage that. They actually fire employees if they don't quote unquote respect pronouns. But I partially digress. We're gonna go ahead and look at an article by Brandon Gomez at CNBC News, and they say, quote, Planet Fitness is raising prices even as it warns customers they are growing price conscientious. They know it is hiking its entry-level base memberships for new members for the first time since 1998, even as the gym operator warns customers are growing increasingly cost conscientious, which, again, I understand, oh, this also is not going to be a good price point for them. It's not going to be as attractive. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, I mean, they're also selling a luxury product. No one needs to go to a Planet Fitness, especially nowadays. There's a lot of competition, and truth be told, you can get a lot done with just calisthenics, which, rudimentary speaking, that's just things like push-ups, sit-ups, chin-ups, things you can do at home without, extra equipment. It's a great way to start, and that's how Arnold got to start way back in the day. Now, they note that interim CEO Greg Benson said several macro conditions weighed in on increasingly price-sensitive consumer. I mean, they also have that big boycott, so they're going to have less overall customers, no matter how you slice it, so to say. So I think that's another reason they need to increase prices. They're going to get, if you have fewer customers, you need to charge more per customer to maintain the business or expand the business. It's just the harsh reality of pissing off and alienating about half your customers, as the bathroom issue with the trans men, women, the people going to the bathrooms, that's become a political issue, alienating about half your prospective clients. Now, that being said, they are probably getting a couple more clients who are going there because of those policies, because they agree with them. I mean, it's not zero in terms of the net, the people are joining. I do think the net result is negative overall in terms of a decreased headcount for the number of people who are actually signing up for Planet Fitness. Now, it looks like the classic card membership will be priced at $15 per month for new members starting this summer. Current members will continue to pay $10 per month for the duration of their membership. Wow. That's an astronomical statistical increase, and also terrible for consumers. I'm actually surprised they never went with the $9.99 shtick, which in retail, I mean, there's a scientific reason everything ends in 99 cents at a grocery store, or any store for that matter. it's a psychological phenomenon. It's fascinating. Well, quite simple. People will always think with the bigger number. So it's $9.99. People will think in their head that it's $9. Now, that being said, pretty much every state in the United States has a sales tax. So in Texas, it's 8.25%, unless it's a grocery item or a certain category. On average, it's 8.25%. So when you see 99, you should really be thinking 10 or 11, depending on how much you want to kind of cushion your budget so you don't feel as bad. But psychologically thinking, people always think $9. And it's brilliant. Now, in this case, going to 15, I'll be interested to see if people are going to take it. Now, the CEO says it will take some time for the benefit of the price to change to expand our store level margins, as the price increase will only be with new Classic Card membership. Again, that's by Tom Fitzgerald, who's the company's ongoing chief financial officer. Now, they say that the membership offers customers access to Planet Fitness location. For any location, you can get membership that is at $24.99 per month. Call it. Again, no one thinks it's $25 per month. They think it's $24 per month, which, again, I mean, every company does that. That makes sense. Let's see. It's funny. They also say, quote, we faced several headwinds which impacted our results, including a shift in customer focus in the new year on savings and concern over the increased pandemic infections and illness. Do they mention it at all? They don't. That's hilarious. Which also goes to show you, get as much data as you can when you're researching a topic. Tune into Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Timcast IRL, this show. Get as many perspectives as possible, because you always want to have more information the better. And it's funny because, again, by this article, again, everyone has their bias, even if it's just inherently, we have, some subconscious that sometimes. CNBC, they did not mention the biggest contributing factor, I think, to why, again, they lost $400 million in stock value when the news first broke about the policy allowing biological men to go into women's locker rooms. And the stock did recover thanks to some big investors, putting money and pumping it up. But they're blaming the pandemic, which that's been years since. I mean, if you didn't know it, you think this article was from 2 or 3 years ago. It's not. It's from this month. So it'll be interesting to see with the ongoing boycotts. And again, these days, I mean, let me know if you think differently, but it seems like everyone's trying to be more budget conscientious, trying to decrease their bills every month and get rid of the stuff they don't need. And granted, I'm a little bit of a health nut, truth be told. Make sure I eat all the healthy foods every day, and I exercise for at least, realistically about 2 hours in the morning. And one of those things where even I'm trying to think of, what could I cut out my budget I don't necessarily need. Now, thankfully, even though I own a home, I rent one, but I do have a place where I have a couple of dumbbells. I have an old, well, by now it's considered an antique treadmill, but it's commercial grade. And in order to get me to the gym, there'd have to be an extraordinary amount of, value added, which I'm not really seeing at the moment in terms of the current market offerings. But I mean, let me know in the comments. I actually just had a neighbor who just bought a bench press. Now that I think about it, he's assembling it in the driveway yesterday. And again, he could have. There's a gym. What was it? Not even 15 minutes from where we live, and yet a lot of people are just building them at home. Partially because of convenience, but partially because of cost, to long-term ROI, and of course your time is very invaluable. You spend 15 minutes to get to the gym every day. That's a 30-minute round trip. You got gas tolls depending on where you live. Then your time and stress levels if you don't like driving. Which, if you had automatic transmission, you probably don't like driving. You probably hate it. But let me know in the comments. Do you think Planet Fitness will, at the end of the day, I think their headcount is going to decrease continually because people are looking to cut their budget. They're also feel alienated by their policies at the gym. But if they're increasing the price, they're going to get some new members. Will that help them so that by the end of the year, their revenue will be similar to last year? Remember, the controversy around Planet Fitness really didn't hit until about March 2023 or 4th this year. And again, when it comes to gyms, they make a vast overwhelming majority of their money in January. Because again, New Year's resolutions, which Americans, well, I think every culture does it, and yet so few people actually keep it. So I'm always a fan of, writing it down, keep yourself accountable, and all such good things. And fascinatingly enough, when you write down goals, you are at a greater percentage to actually achieve them. But I partially digress. Let me know, as always, in the comments. I'd be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the culture part of the podcast, you have California to charge citizens their electric rates based on their income. Yet another reason not to work hard in America. They actively punish you at every moment, which is morally and mentally vacuous, to say the least, and the antithesis of what our founding fathers believed in. Perhaps that's one of the reasons they really don't teach that or much in public schools these days. Now, this actually comes from a website by the name of calmatters.org, which, I guess someone else beat them to the domain of California Matters, written by Bren Christopherson. And they note that California will see lower electricity rates and new fee that won't vary with power use. That's the headline. And that sounds really good. Again, framing, oh, I guess you can't see with the graphic there. Framing is very important. Because again, if you make, a lot, if you don't make, again, especially in California dollars, if you don't make a lot of money, you don't work a lot, well, this news is great because you're going to be getting heavily subsidized electricity. Now, they talk about how this company and little backgrounds, but I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that chart on top. So go to this chart right here. They say the winners and losers from fixed charges. For households that do not benefit discounts, lower energy users will pay more every month. Now, also, look at this chart in terms of the fees. So it looks like if you make less than, my eyes aren't as great as they used to be. I'm still bucking the family trend, still no glasses yet. Knock on 150-year-old antique barnwood. But this is, if you make less than $49.7 thousand, it looks like your rate's going to go down by negative $20. I mean, it's going to be heavily discounted. That's great for those people. Then what about the middle class, the people, or the middle bar in this case, the people in California that make $49,700 to $62,000? Just that. Oh, look at that. SoCal Edition, S&G, P&G. Look at the rates. So they're going up quite a bit. Look at that graph. Again, when you make less than 49.7K, it looks like higher energy user can get negative $25, looks like. Don't give exact. Then it goes to, wow, even less. And the people who make $62.2 thousand plus. Look at that. Bam, bam, bam. They all go up. So if they're low energy user, it looks like, I'm pivoting a couple of computers here. Looks like estimated low user increased by $9, 9.97, and 2.86. Look at these numbers respectively. Fascinating. So it is interesting. It's a private company working in the state. And yeah, I mean, yeah, no reason not to live there. Granted, that list is long and growing, but it is fascinating to see this. I wonder if there'll be a long-term business trend, and culturally speaking, will people start to push back? I mean, it's funny. I was told solar was going to fix everything. You'd have free electricity for all, and California does a lot of that, and yet they still have the highest rates in the union. Fascinating incident. But as always, let me know in the comments. I'd be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have Bud Light sales still down at 28.2%, and the competitors are still gaining market share. This is thanks to one of my favorite websites, and perhaps it's just a little bit of nostalgia since I was a child of the 90s. Now, if you're younger than me, you may have never heard of this magical company called Yahoo, which was actually like Google before Google existed. And fascinatingly enough, they had the offer from Microsoft to be sold for like $40 billion. Yeah, they didn't. They ended up selling to like Verizon for $4 billion. So again, timing is half of everything in life. They should have sold for $40 billion, not $4 billion. And the rest is history, as some might say. Now they barely exist, but they're still active, and kind of makes me smile when I see their logo. It's the good old days before I was paying income tax and all the other taxes and all the other ailments of time and government taxing. Now, nevertheless, going ahead to this article. This is written by Brooke DePalma. She says Bud Light sales still falling as Modelo Coors fight to keep their gains. See here. Now, in terms of some statistics, they say that revenue for Anheuser-Busch did jump 2.6% to $14.55 billion thanks to higher prices, but volume still sold dropped by 0.6%, which I was going to say, given inflation, are they really making more money at the end of the day? No, absolutely not. They note that the largest decline came from North America, where volume dropped 9.9%, largely due to the sales, or lack of sales rather, from Bud Light. They know that sales to retailers and wholesalers were down at 13.7% and 10.7% respectively in the US. It looks like Bud Williams Consulting saying, quote, "We lost a whole generation of hardcore Bud Light shoppers. going to take us at least 10 years to recapture what we lost in 1 year. Which, that may very well be possible. I mean, culturally speaking, we see this with, kind of throughout history. The other brands shoot themselves in the foot, alienate themselves, and eventually people come around. Not always, but I mean, people do have short memories, and maybe in a couple years, Bud Light will start to increase. You also have 20 million people plus crossing the U.S. border illegally, as well as people coming here legally. There's a lot of new prospective clients in North America, so I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, we also know that here, going down more and more to the statistics, you get this nice graph. And for those just tuning in, they are contrasting Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Yuengling. Again, those are four major brands. Then they have Busch Light, then they have Michelob Ultra, which is one of Anheuser-Busch InBev's most popular intellectual properties. Well, it's their beer that they own. Then you have Bud Light. And it starts from Q1 2023. They're actually all about the same because that was when they started measuring the data and the deviation for the data. And Bud Light started to go down by 23.5%, 26.7%, 28.8%. Now it's at 28.2% year to date in 2024. Now Busch Light, and let's say Michelob Ultra is down, see here, 3.1% year to date. Yuengling is up 6.4%. Yeah, Miller Lite up at 7.4%, and Coors Light at 16.3%, all increase year to date. If you see here, the most drastic increase and decrease, actually increase for the three winners comes from, that was Q2 2023, which is, when the Dylan Mulvaney incident happened, where, again, brilliant VP of marketing. She bragged on LinkedIn how she was the first female marketing leader at the company at Anheuser-Busch, Alyssa Heiderschild. She said, it's a good idea. We're going to give Dylan Mulvaney $185,000 to be a brand ambassador or celebrate 365 days of womanhood, giving Dylan a can with Dylan's face plastered upon it. Which, interestingly enough, I feel like Harrison Ford, it belongs in a museum because it surely does. That $185,000 resulted in $1.4 billion in lost sales for Bud Light. The greatest negative ROI in business history that I could possibly comprehend. If you know anything different, please let me know in the comments. Now, looks like Yuengling at their peak increased by 26.8%. This is just astronomical. Coors Light went up, was it 20.9%? Miller was 18.7%. Again, this is for Q2 2023. And that's when Bud Light was down 23.5%, and then it got worse to 26, then 28. So it continues to get worse. And again, still, even though these are kind of quote unquote leveling out, they're still, in terms of the percentage of changes, that trend is going down. But overall, they're still winning. And I don't see that trend getting reversed anytime soon. Here, 20%. Now, then we also have the fun comments, which is half the fun in life. See what kind of form. Well, the formatting is terrible on the screen. I'm just going to read them from my laptop here. Formatting is not good on the computer, but go ahead and go there, and I'll just go back to the chart. So if you're seeing the show, you can just kind of take a closer look at that. One of the first comments comes from TNT, and he says, quote, "We've lost a whole generation of hardcore Bud Light shoppers. Bud Blaine's consulting. It's going to take us 10 years. And then he says, so now they are finally realizing the reaction to the debacle from last year was ineffective. This was such an abysmal failure in leadership that I'm stunned as how the CEO and the board still have their jobs. Newsflash, Anheuser-Busch, you're still not going to solve the problem by trying to sweep it under the rug and trying to pull a patriotic heartstrings with a slew of old-style ads. This requires more of a direct approach. Focus on rebuilding your iconic brand." Unquote. That got 253 likes and only 17 down likes. Which, yeah, they gave an abysmal, we're going to stay in our political lane type of messaging a couple days ago. It's so futile, I didn't even bother covering it. Maybe I'll throw it in the show later this week. But yeah, it's amazing. Brandon Whitworth, the former CIA operative, now CEO of Anheuser-Busch, still has his job. Now the board of directors still have their job. I mean, this is worse than New Coke. New Coke, ironically, a lot of people have a business conspiracy theory that it was made to fail so that people would be so hungry for the old classic Coke that when they reintroduced classic Coke, that would propel the company to new heights, which it did propel the company to new heights, and they were able to overtake Pepsi. But that's they're betting the farm on that methodology. I don't think a business would be so interested, or they would be usually businesses are very risk averse, mostly. So I never really thought that Coca-Cola did that intentionally, thinking they were going to long-term win. I think it was a very happy coincidence that once they reverted back to their old style, that people came back even more. Another top comment from this Yahoo Finance article comes from Rob saying, quote, they actually made two mistakes. One, alienating all their regular customers, and two, not admitting they made a mistake and not apologizing to all the customers. How many millions have you lost, Anheuser-Busch? Hope it was worth it. They got 219 likes and only 14 down likes. And no, Rob, they didn't lose millions. They've lost billions. Again, $1.4 billion in sales just gone from the same time period prior to the Dylan Mulvaney controversy. Again, when you're picking your brand ambassadors, probably should be a little bit smarter than that. Let's see here. Well, so other comments just all in consensus. Not a lot of contrarian statements in this one thus far. Like people giving shout outs or praising Yangling because it's still family owned, the oldest brewery in the United States, which I gotta give it to Bud Light. If it wasn't for their business blunder of the century with Dylan Mulvaney debacle, I'm not really a beer enthusiast. If it wasn't for Bud Light's ineptitudes, I would never have heard about Yangling. And now that I know that it's still family owned, it's the oldest brewery in the United States, I mean, that's one of the main reasons I purchased it. And I push it. One of those things where I'm not even inebriated. I simply just can't talk sometimes. But if you click that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. I have that theory where when I first started the show, I actually spoke in a monotone. I was speaking a lot faster, believe it or not, stumbling over my words, and I had a lot of stuttering. Now, as I've gained subscribers, slowly but surely, I've gained a little bit more speaking ability, some might argue. Some might also argue it's just just modicum of improvement, barely anything at all. But I think the theory may very well hold some water. So if you click that like button and subscribe button, I think it may very well assist in my endeavor of someday gaining some speaking proficiencies. Hilariously enough, yes, I have taken speaking classes in the past. Believe it or not, I was worse. Now, nevertheless, going back to Yangling, if it wasn't for Bud Lights and Neptunes, I would never heard about them. And now for my corporate events for my IT company, I will only buy Yangling beer. So when we're hosting a happy hour, or if we're hosting one of our events where we're at a fun little golf event, or what else do we do lately? For the podcast, for an interview podcast, I always make sure I got a couple cold Yanglings for someone if they prefer an alcoholic beverage. So it'll be interesting to see again. Bud Light just continues to lose market share. Their competitors are still reaping the gains, to say the least. Let me know. When was the last time you actually bought Bud Light? I think I've seen two people in the past year at a social setting where they chose a Bud Light willingly. They weren't inebriated too much. They actually said, "Oh yeah, I want that." And yes, I mean, granted, the sample size. I live in the great country, some might say the state of Texas, or some call it Texas. You got to pronounce it right. And people did give that Bud Light order person a little bit of a weird, like, "The hell's wrong? What's wrong with you?" That kind of gesture. But let me know in the comments. As always, I'd be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part podcast, you have Vivek on Ann Coulter saying she wouldn't vote for him because he is Indian. Now, this comes to us thanks to Vivek's X-Twitter profile, in which she says, quote, Ann Coulter told me flat out to my face that she couldn't vote for me because you're an Indian. Even though she agreed with me on more than most candidates, I disagree with her, but respect she had the guts to speak her mind. It is a riveting hour. The Truth podcast is back. And this is only about a minute long of Vivek, and I mean, truth be told, his voice is infinitely better than mine, and gotta give him credit, like all good gentlemen, he does suit up, as we all should. We always like their best. And a very rare thing in politics, I know he's not an official politician yet. I kind of think he'll be involved in some type of official capacity shortly. But a very rare thing in politics, he actually does have an American flag on his lapel. You don't see that much in DC these days. Without further ado.
And that's why I brought on today somebody who I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country, of our conservative movement, and on this question of nationalism and national identity, somebody who I've been fascinated by for a long time and have interacted with on social media, but for the first time we're having at least a live form conversation in the offline sense of it. It's Ann Coulter. So Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I too am a fan of yours. So I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American Black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you're running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Jeez. Really? I mean, I think it is kind of appropriate if you're watching the show, if you're just tuning in. There, the end is Vivek sitting with his fingers or his hands crossed in his suit, looking classy. He has look. I mean, he has look happy. He's not smiling, obviously, and yet she's where it pauses at the end of the video. She looks like she's crazy. Well, her mouth is open like she's screaming, and her fashion acumen is piss poor to say the least. Obviously, and yeah, that's pretty disgusting. I understand.
That's why I brought on.
Again, I don't know if it's a feature or a bug, Elon, but the videos always repeat themselves automatically at the end. Perhaps you think we're so enthused about the video we want to see it one more time, which in some cases, yeah, sure. But yeah, morally vacuous to say the least. You wouldn't vote for someone based on things they can't control, like the race. That is disgusting. I have heard some people say they were hesitant about Vivek because he doesn't share the founding fathers in terms of their same faith. And a lot of people will also argue that they respect Vivek for not switching to a more popular religion, at least in the United States, where historically speaking, there's a lot, in terms of voting and outreach, there's a lot of Catholics and Christians. That's a big voting base, and they're usually pretty active in the voting. But yeah, Vivek said he wouldn't change his religion just to win votes, which I respect, actually, even if I'm not of his religion, I could appreciate it. Now, this got 4.7 million views and 11,000 likes, with one of the first ones being Paul Zupa saying, quote, "Speaking one's mind is important. Now, how does Ann Coulter have an issue with Vivek being an Indian? Shouldn't good ideas trump all? What if you are blind? Would you care what someone looked like, or just that they can provide the best life in your family?" That got 648 likes, including one for myself. USMC Lady Vet says she's always been racist, getting 1.2 thousand likes. Indian Tintin says Dinesh D'Souza humped and dumped her, which made her Indian phobic, getting 2,000 likes. Wild Girders says, "LOL, you're effing weak and pathetic," getting 5.8 thousand likes, which, I mean, I always think the best way to defeat someone in terms of the rhetoric and ideas is always have a debate and get to know them and really just say which methodology is best. Now, the fact that she's saying that, I think actually is admirable to try to win over someone when, again, because again, I don't think isolating someone like Ann Coulter in a room or, banishing her from society is going to make her evolve or have her win her over or, expose her to ideas. But yeah, her ideas are obviously viscerally disgusting to say the least. Now, you also have Anthony AI says, let's see, "Wild how you just let white people pull you out every time you turn on camera." And 3.2 thousand likes. This is a very rare instance where Vivek is getting, as youth might say, ratioed. He usually has, I want to say, 50 to 60% positive responses in his feed. Let's see, you have Patrick Casey saying, "Vivek, you made it very clear you want America to be more accessible to Indian immigrants at a time when immigration restriction is a popular issue, and it's correct to point out you have a vested ethnic interest in facilitating a great replacement." I got 2,000 likes, which, again, if people don't realize this, India is actually a pretty conservative country. They have a fair amount in common with conservatives, and they also one of the largest tech companies on the planet. I mean, again, if someone is of acumen or, they could be a value add to society, I mean, I think even people who aren't traditionally in favor of, I mean, it's, again, a big political issue is illegal immigration. We've been debating it for decades, which I partially think that Republicans and Democrats just have these hot topics that they'll never actually resolve, because then they can both raise money on both sides of the political aisle, pretending they'll fix the problem, which is why I usually feel so politically alienated. But another topic for another time, perhaps. But when it comes to people coming here legally, an overwhelming majority of Americans agree with that. I think, I mean, again, I don't have statistics. I can't tell you like 2% of Americans are against every form of immigration. Again, there might very well be, and you can make the argument that the United States has gotten to the point where it's not as necessary as it used to be. There was a time, believe it or not, when there's no income tax, and the government would actually give you free land if you came here, because they need to help explore the different territories of the United States and need to help build it out. Unfortunately, those days are long gone. Now, going back to the comments, let's see here. Roman Vantilli says, "It's not your race, buddy. You just remind Ann so much of the ex-boyfriend, who is also a notorious con." It got 853 likes for a picture with a little prison placard with Denise D'Souza. Let's see here. Steven says, when people say horse face, I never know if they're talking about Stormy Daniels or Ann Coulter, getting 565 likes. Migs1865 says it would be interesting to hear her rationale for being a bigot, getting 362 likes, which, in spoiler alert, usually isn't. Again, the best way in terms of exposure, I believe, in terms of trying to show people that all races can be cool. You just have, in my opinion, the most important thing is do you share the common core values. And the more you get to know people, the more you find that in many cases you do. Granted, I'm also a little bit biased. I have my geographic bias, so to say, because I'm in the great country, or some might argue the great state of Texas, where most people here are all about loving freedom, their founding fathers, and giving everyone rights. But I partially digress. You have News Nomad saying Vivek maintained composure and worked to find common ground with Coulter. Masterclass in how to be undefendable. Getting 819. Oh, 823. I'll do one more. 824 likes. See here. Philip Anderson says, quote, we all support you, Vivek, and hope to see you as vice president or in some other position, unquote. Getting 297 likes. Interesting enough, not a lot of memes this time around. There's another clip from it. Here. About 10 minutes long, but it looks like, well, maybe we'll play a minute or two. This claims to be one of his responses to her. Let's see.
Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during.
And so I think you and I share that in common, actually. I don't know, I've never asked you this, Ann, but I assume from seeing the things you said, tell me if I'm right about this, you're probably against the existence of dual citizenship as a concept. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yes. You and I share that in common.
Outrageous.
It's incoherent. It's not just outrageous. It's incoherent. It's oxymoronic. How could you possibly have a loyalty to two different nations where the essence of citizenship is which nation to whom you had your undivided loyalty? That's what the essence of citizenship is all about. So you and I agree on so much there. But where I wouldn't say lose you, but I may fail to fully understand you, is on that axis of citizenship, what does ethnicity have to do with the matter? And I think you would be well served, and maybe this could be a great platform for you to do it, to make the case for why that, what you put at WASP basis for the American identity, how is that relevant against a backdrop of which you got the WASP seventh generation descendant of some rich guy on the Upper East Side in Brooklyn that pretends to hate this country because it's the cool thing to do, versus somebody who came here as the kid of immigrants, but pledges loyalty to this country? If loyalty was the axis for citizenship, aren't you actually committing a bit of a sin, reverting back to a conception of citizenship that has nothing to do with loyalty in the first place?
Well, I will say many of those seventh generations WASP I definitely hate. I know we have a lot of really, really bad ones, but like I said, anyone can adopt this. I guess what I just said, if any of your children marry a DAR, I would definitely vote for them for president. It's not so much, it's more president is different. You have to be natural born, as you know, which, by the way, Ted Cruz is not, basically because of what you were just describing. Where is the loyalty? So ambassadors' children born actually in the United States are not natural born, but that's a total sidebar. I've gotten.
It's actually not a sidebar at all. I mean, the fact that ambassadors' kids born in the United States are not citizens is actually an overlooked fact. If a kid of an ambassador from Mexico does not enjoy birthright citizenship, neither does somebody who's in this country illegally.
So that goes on for about 10 minutes, but I think it's a good highlight there. Again, it's good. If you want to change someone's hearts and minds, you got to find common ground and build upon it and kind of share your perspective, and hopefully they come over to your side. So I think he did, that was a pretty good, as youth might say, a comeback. But yeah, Vivek continued to be articulate, gave good answers. And I mean, will she ever really change her mind? I mean, hopefully. I mean, that's always the hope that people grow and develop over time. I'd like to think that. But let me know in the comments. As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have RFK supporting full-term abortions. Will he lose any support? Now, this comes to us thanks to X-Twitter, and specifically, it comes from Charlie Kirk. Now, Charlie says, quote, here is RFK Jr. affirming his commitment to China-style full-term abortion without limits nationwide. And has a little clip here. I don't want to say he half-assed it, but where's his suit? He is wearing a tie and a button-up. Like, you're so close to having, a little bit of, how do you not go, how do you miss the blazer? Like, how do you not do that? like going somewhere and not wearing shoes. Oh, wait? He's not doing that either? Let's dive into this. I usually say their voice is infinitely better than mine, and usually is, truth be told. In this case, it might be might be a coin flip, but let me go.
But so to leave, so in other words, keeping it as is with Roe versus Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion?
No, I wouldn't leave it to the
You
states.
wouldn't, right?
No.
Again, there are a lot of disgusting things going on right now, including but not limited to. He's sitting in a poofy chair. I mean, definitely a gal designed this place. It's not a cool, solid chair, solid furniture. It's like modern garbage. But he also, and she's sitting on the couch with her legs under her, like a child. No shoes on as well. Well, I guess she's on the sofa, so I guess you wouldn't have shoes on there. But he's sitting down in that funny looking chair. And he's not wearing shoes. I'm surely stinking up the room, not just with his ideals, but also with foot stink. And his shoes are right there. Like, this isn't a thing where, oh man, maybe he couldn't afford the shoes. He doesn't have enough campaign financing. Or maybe he forgot his shoes at home. But maybe he had a Bud Light and he forgot. But no, he's literally on the ground. And again, it might be camera perspective. Maybe it's more than a foot. Maybe it's 4 feet. But the shoes they look like they're right out of arm's length distance. So there's no reason for him not to be wearing them. And truth be told, I don't even see a blazer like thrown on the back of the chair, which is even more bizarre. Where is your blazer, sir? Where is your suit? He does have dress pants, and he's wearing a belt, so he did something right. He has a tie, I guess. But nevertheless, we'll go back to hearing what he has to say, and I'll rewind it for a fraction of a second.
No, I wouldn't leave it to the states.
You wouldn't, right?
No, I would.
You would say completely. It's up to the woman.
My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have government involved.
Even if it's full term.
Even if it's full term.
Okay, and I think.
Yeah, that's not very popular among most Americans. Among libertarians, I do understand that perspective, and it might be more. I was gonna say, let me know if you're a fellow libertarian in the comment section. I could see that being more popular with them. And went pretty viral. Got 922,000 views, but only 5.3 thousand likes. So not many likes. Again, if you look at statistics on what average Americans think about abortion, again, it's one of those cliche political hot buttons that has been debated for decades. The pessimist in me kind of thinks, well, yeah, that's so that Democrats and Republicans can both raise money for campaign funds and never actually fix the issue or come to a resolution. But I partially digress on that note. But if you look at the polling, most people say, yeah, 9-month abortion, no, doesn't pass the gut test. 8-month, hell no. I mean, most people do not support third trimester abortions. Personally, I would say no one with a modicum of morality would support that. Now, usually the big debate in the United States is, where does it end? There are a couple of people who want to ban it altogether, and especially the faith-based community, that makes 110% sense. You're quite literally taking a life. Now, the consensus that a lot of people say is, around 16 weeks, that's when a lot of people, again, not all, but that's a very popular opinion. I'm not saying it's correct morally, just because a lot of people are saying that's what they think is the right thing to do. I mean, personally, it seems the older I get, the less I could think of ways to justify why anyone of moral value would choose to do that. Granted, let me know in the comments. I'd be, interested in what your perspective is. And again, when you're looking at who is he trying to court in terms of, he's a libertarian and he wants to get the people who feel politically alienated, like myself. He's trying to find people who they feel like the Democrats don't like them, they feel the Republicans are bad. The old joke is Democrats are running off a cliff and Republicans are just walking towards the cliff, and then rolling off inevitably. For Chris Christie, you're rolling for sure. But again, if you trying to win over a vote, it doesn't give you a compelling reason to vote for him. Democrats already believe this. Now, 20 years ago, 10 years ago even, this would have been, from a libertarian perspective, a articulate point that they would respect. Because again, they want to have no government at all. Or very little, very little. From that perspective, that at that time, that would have made sense because back in the day, Democrats were against abortion, believe it or not. We're winding back the clock many years. This feels like a lifetime. Back in the day when gas was under $1 a gallon, which, thanks to our government ineptitudes and global issues and EPA, that's not going to happen again for quite some time. But there was a time where Democrats, their campaign slogan was, I mean, they originally said this is terrible, but we understand. We say there's unforeseen circumstances. It needs to happen. And the big mantra, again, Bill Clinton, I think, really made this a famous comment and philosophy. I don't know if it's really philosophy, more of a political ideal, but they used to say safe, legal, and rare. That was the standard back in the day. And then Republicans, their marketing shtick was no, it's evil. You're killing babies. It's not right. You're making less humans in the planet, which is also not good. And that was what was kind of the political consensus. Democrats said, it should be safe, legal, and rare. You're not supposed to, no one would never brag about this. But now the Democrat Party, again, they keep moving, and so Republicans, now they brag about it. It's almost like a rite of passage for some people, which is so viscerally, mentally, and morally vacuous and disgusting. I can't imagine. But there are people who brag about gay abortions, which, I mean, even if you have unforeseen circumstances, I can't fathom how you would brag about that. Even if you're of the perspective that you think it's just a clump of cells, well, you're getting rid of the potential. If you did nothing, you're removing a child. Why would you brag about that? And yet, that's the Democratic Party is doing these days. Not everyone in the party, I understand. There are outliers, of course. That is the overwhelming consensus. Because that is the current overwhelming consensus in the Democrat Party, RFK saying this really doesn't add much value add. Because if that's, again, there are a lot of people where they're single issue voters, or there's 2 or 3 things that their person needs to say, or they have a policy conscription that they will vote for him. And again, RFK isn't adding any value here. This is just a Democratic talking point and Democratic policy. So it really isn't much value added at all. It's not going to get him more prospective voters. Those voters are just going to vote for Biden because, again, that's their policy. So again, in addition to morality and just the gut check of a full term, I mean, personally, I think that's viscerally disgusting, of course. But life gets boring if you're in the echo chamber, so let me know if you think differently, and maybe we'll see some different perspectives in the comments. Now, some of the first ones comes from Paul Zupa saying, quote, "He couldn't have been more clear. RFK Jr. supports infanticide. What a monster," getting 248 likes, which you can at least respect the guy in terms of he is being very clear. He's letting you know exactly his policy, which, again, this is why I'm a big fan of political debates and having as much data as possible. You also have Sassafras84 saying, "So he supports murder. How could anyone agree to terminate this beautiful child? RFK will never be president." It shows, a baby reacting to mom's first kiss, getting 615 likes. Well, no. Well, this video just got, I was going to say, it's already shadow banned on the YouTube, but yeah, any modicum of music also gets it censored and demonetized. Well, granted, not making a living off this, but it's one of those things where you have no other reason to tune in on other platforms, and again, subscribe and like me on those alternative platforms. Apparently, if you say the name of those platforms, you also get even more blacklisted. I mean, statistically speaking, 2 to 3 people will see this video on YouTube. Maybe if I text a family member, maybe we'll get to up to 3. But yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence. I went from thousands to even a couple hundred views per video to now where the average is down to like 2 to 3. Granted, I think I had one video that last week that got like a couple hundred. So there's like 1 or 2 outliers. And again, let me know in the comments. Is there something I need to do differently? Hey, I've increased the production value, but of course, more feedback the better. Maybe I just need to switch things up a bit. Now, going back to the comments, we have, let's see here, a couple people agreeing with him on the vaccine policies, which, yeah. Salty Goat says, "And regardless of how passionate he rails against vaccines, that is a deal killer for pretty much all conservatives," getting 694 likes, which, yes, that is a deal breaker for me, especially people in the faith community. That is also a big deal breaker for them as well. Jerry says, "Don't be fooled by RFK. He's a liberal Democrat through and through," getting 446 likes, which he is also, historically speaking, against the Second Amendment, which, for me, that's another big red flag. If you're against, freedom and citizens being able to defend themselves, not really a big fan of that. And for the record, there are a lot of rhinos, or pejoratively known as Republicans in name only, who turn out to be anti-Second Amendment, which, again, primary them, peacefully protest, and vote differently is what I always say. Let's see here. George Alexampos simply says, "F this guy," getting 262 likes. Is any contrarian statements? Because again, there are a lot of people who support this. Let's see here. Okay, here's one maybe. Patrick Webb says, "Conservatives shouldn't be attacking RFK Jr. They should be thanking him. He's not trying to steal votes for Trump, but doing the opposite to take away votes for Biden." He's made it quite clear he doesn't want a second term of Biden, nor do most Americans. He says Kennedy will be the Ross Perot of the 2024 election, getting 70 likes, which I don't think so. I don't think so. Ross Perot was extremely well known and beloved, especially in his home state, or some might say the country of Texas, where he's a very successful entrepreneur. He had a lot of charisma. He had a lot more support and a lot more resource allocation. I know RFK's VP is apparently a former, was it a wife or of a billionaire tech entrepreneur. So I know RFK does have he has some serious resource allocation, but again, RFK was, I don't think he has as much support as Ross Perot did. Let me know if you think differently, though. Yeah, there's any other statements. See here. I mean, pretty much overwhelming. James Hutton says too many young voters see RFK Jr. as a cool alternative to Trump or Biden. He's basically a left-wing crank, getting 11 likes. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's see if this increases his support, because again, this policy really doesn't add anything much different than what. I mean, it's really not adding much different than what Democrats are and what Biden is. I mean, this is pretty much just copy paste. So I don't see this specific stance pulling over people to vote for RFK. I think some of the other he has a couple other stances that might attract more prospective voters. And again, politics is a long game. Things change all the time. So maybe he'll have another policy that's more attractive for the mass audience and maybe pulls over some more votes. But you never want to underestimate your opponent, whether it's chess, checkers, or politics or business. But as of right now, I'd say his outlook for him is not great. Maybe 1% of the polls. But as always, let me know in the comments. I would be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Beyond Meat stock dropping yet again. And for the folks who have never heard of this abomination, Beyond Meat is one of those disgusting things where they put not just 11 herbs and spices, but a bunch of artificial crap and vegetables and weird things to make artificial meat, which every single time has failed since everyone's tried that stupid idea. And of course, I would argue it's not healthy because of all the disgusting, they put a myriad of oils in there. And for the people who say, oh, you're saving the animals, which again, animals are they're mainly meant to be eaten and they taste delicious and they're better for you. But in this case, ironically, you actually end up killing more animals because the farmers have to kill all the critters that try to go after the vegetables. But I partially digress. Now, this comes to us thanks to Yahoo Finance. They note that, quote, why Beyond Meat stock was sliding by Jeremy Bowman. They note that the stock dropped last week at 13.8% because the revenues continue to decline. Ooh, it looks disgusting. If you're just tuning into this on the podcast, you're not actually watching it, you may very well be happy. They have a picture of what it should be a hamburger, but it's replaced by a disgusting meat, which, supposedly everything else looks high quality or fancy in terms of the bun, the cheese, the grano, the onion. That all looks pretty hefty, almost like a fast food commercial where obviously the real food isn't that good, but it's pretty good. And yet the patty, which again is a Beyond Meat patty, it looks. And this is their commercial. This image is from Beyond Meat. It just looks like a disgusting, soggy defecate. Like it's not good marketing. And again, this company, they definitely need someone to do their marketing for them because that looks disgusting. Now, they note that in terms of the statistics on the business, they note that the trends will continue in the first quarter. Revenue fell 18%, $75.6 million, which, yeah, this is also a luxury product. No one needs this artificial stuff. I get it. Again, there's still a market for that. There are still people, mainly San Francisco, who are purchasing this product. But like the average person, do they want to spend more for a product that is less healthy and taste, let's be honest, terrible? Now, they note that the revenue was slightly ahead of the estimates of $75.2 million. The company said it faced a difficult comparison with a large order from McDonald's a quarter ago. U.S. revenue was down 16% to $49.4 million, with international revenue dropping 21.5% to $26.2 million. The company been focused on cutting costs to take steps to become profitable, delivering its first gross profit in the quarter of $3.7 million, although that was down from $6.2 million in the quarter a year ago. It adjusted its earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization, known as EBITDA. Loss narrowed to $45.8 million to $32.9 million, for the benefit of laying off layoffs and supply chain and manufacturing enhancements. On bottom line, the adjusted per share loss narrowed to 92 cents to 72 cents per share, slightly worse than the consensus 67 cents per share. The CEO, in terms of what's next, they say CEO says the company is making progress against its priorities, facing financial goals and food quality improvements, but the guideline shows they have a lot of work to do. For the full year, they expect to get revenue of $315 million to $345 million, lining up to consensus with analysts, which, who's buying this crap now? Now they're saying, well, yeah, maybe, now it's funny, this is, if you invest this much money, how much could you make? What are the comments looking like? Here. Well, looks like a lot of comments are talking about how they got their comments originally censored by Yahoo. But let's go to the stock and look at the roller coaster ride. Yeah, it dropped. Oh, look at that drop. If you're just tuning in, it crashed. Again, last week the average was down negative 11.16%. In terms of the max of all time, it's lost 89.19% since its initial public offering at $66.79 per share. The past 5-year trend is down again 89.10%. Past year is down 42.15%. Year to date is down 11%. Past 6 months actually did increase by 4.49%. And looks like the market cap is 472 million. 52-week low is $5.58. 52-week high was $19.25 per share. Dividend yield is 0 because they give you no incentive to hold the stock and they don't pay dividends apparently. And they also have 686 employees, and of course they're headquartered in El Segundo, California. Which, yeah, look at that. That stock is not looking great. And again, it's also crap that no one really needs. Now again, there very well may come in a time when the government just puts a gun to our head and says, well, we're going to be forced to eat the bugs and eat this artificial beef, whatever you want to call this abomination, this plant goop. Well, you're going to force this, or we're going to legally mandate it's illegal to have cows and all that kind of stuff, which, given the politics these days, that's not out of the realm of possibility. In that case, this stock would be worth more than Apple, if it was the only company that was already making this, and legally is the only thing that was allowed to exist. Not out of the realm of possibility, but given the, I was going to say, the business blunder is almost the product existing in and of itself, but also realistically, in terms of the short term of the business, the fact that they continue to lose money, they are not getting the orders that they were hoping for with these big fast food corporations, which, again, that's another issue, is these things cost way too much. If you really want to, again, if they really want to realistically knock it out of the park with fast food companies, tell them they can get the product for half the cost of beef and say it'll taste about the same. You'd be lying because, again, it tastes like trash. But to me, the real mass adoption rate is if they can do that, which they currently cannot, maybe in the future, but they seem like just keep making the bad moves, and they're not getting to the place where they need to be. I mean, I don't see us succeeding long term, but let me know in the comments. I might be wrong. But it is to say, in terms of the news, their stock crashing that much, I gotta say, Beyond Beef, that is certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you could click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.